Yeah, so today we'll talk about just addressing some joint health and things don't need to be necessarily perfect, but when we start talking about mobility and like being able to move well through strength training movements, how we address that and why we start with, good position of the body, getting our bones in the right places and trying to center our joints, and then specific stretches to help us kind of open up some mobility, and then being able to lock in that mobility with some sort of strength activity, so that we're really getting the most out of our mobility exercises, right? And so that they will help us when we go back to our strength training feel a little bit, better, should feel a little bit easier to get into some ranges of motion that are potentially restricted. And I really like John Ruston's system, and it's not the first one that I've seen like it, but um, it just follows this similar pattern of, okay, we're gonna like release, whatever tension is limiting us. We're gonna reinforce with some strength, and then we're gonna work into actually doing our strength training. And I think that is a really good way to actually get change in the nervous system to help really lock in. If like there's a specific range of motion that you want to have, that's probably the best way to go about it, is doing it by getting strong. So we're gonna start today by, good morning.
Morning.
We're gonna take a look at ankle mobility, and then we'll go through a series of, and I'll show you specific stretch. We're gonna definitely talk about position. It is important still with ankle mobility, but I'm more worried about, like rib cage position and pelvis position when we get into hip mobility, which we'll do here in a little bit. But with the ankle mobility stuff, we'll go through kind of a quick assessment, and then we'll go through some exercises and stretches that I've been working on. I mean, I've been working on this for years, so I have pretty limited ankle mobility, and I think that's just from playing sports and other things, but these seem to really help me. So we're going to head to a wall. Put this camera up. If you have a wall, or you can kind of rough estimate this, but it's just a real quick thing. You're going to take your fist, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to put it in between you and the wall, about fist length away. You'll go to one knee down, half kneeling, and you're going to try to see if you can get your knee to the wall without letting your heel come off the ground. Pretty simple. Check it out. I definitely can't do that, so you can't. You want to turn that heater on, please? Thank you. I definitely can't do that. It's okay if you can't, but it's just something we want to be aware of, because when we go to squat, if we don't have that ability to get into that range of motion, then we're definitely going to want to find ways to modify, change the environment so that we can do it safely, without a lot of cheating, because number one is keeping our body in a good position, right? We don't want to focus on training in positions where we're really wearing on our joints, right? We want to, or locking out our joints. Good example of that is, when people aren't necessarily strong enough, or maybe if they're in puberty and they grow really fast, they tend to like stand where they lock their knees out, and they kind of like sit into a hip, and like they don't really own their position with muscle. They like try to rely on joints and ligaments. We want to avoid that long term, because it's not a great strategy for joint health. So ankle mobility, if we had that limitation of not being able, and this might feel good anyway, like it's just a good thing to address. Like most people, these stretches are pretty harmless, and like I said, we're going to be focusing on position first anyway. But we're going to take and we're going to go to this hands-on drill with our ankles. If we're stuck and really limited in the ability to flex our ankle or toes towards our knee, a lot of people are going to want to take and stretch a lot of the backside, and I think that's a pretty good strategy. They probably are tighter here through gastroc. But if you're like me and you get jammed up in the front of your ankle, this particular stretch might be helpful, and it usually just feels pretty good. So we're going to go and actually go into a lot of plantar flexion, and I'm going to take, so you're going to want to be in socks, that's probably another thing I should have mentioned. We're going to take and grab a hold, and we're going to try to basically curl the foot up into like a fist. As I come in, and you should feel the stretch along the front here, more the anterior tib, kind of all the stuff here in the front. That's a super deep stretch for me. And again, thinking about trying to like make a fist with your foot as you pull it in, should feel pretty good. About 30 seconds. Do you get much of a stretch out of this one? Yeah. I feel like, most people who are pretty active, and, the ankle is definitely an undervalued joint. I mean, it's like basically the first joint from the ground, right? So, like your foot. I mean, it's amazing to me that this small of a surface area holds up your entire body, and you balance on that as you walk. It's insane. Out of any animal, like, it's pretty crazy. And then we'll try the other side. You might find that one side's a little tighter than the other side. And we're really trying to ball up and make a fist with a lot of these exercises. So we're going to be working through full range, full plantar flexion, full dorsiflexion. Once we get a little bit of mobilization going. There are some other banded kind of tricks that you can do too, but since we're limited on that, we won't necessarily focus on that today. That feels pretty good. Does it feel good for you? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good stretch.
Yeah. Try to really think about making a fist with your foot. I think overall, I have pretty weak feet. I go outside and I'm barefoot, and it's not comfortable. I have really soft skin on the bottom of my feet. I really wish I had stronger feet. I think that's probably a really helpful way to strengthen the entire leg, right? Because think about grip strength and your ability to lift things with your pushing and pulling. My hands are probably rougher than my feet. That seems backwards, huh? Okay, about 30 seconds, and then we're gonna go to supine position where we're on our back. We've done this one before. Again, I'm focusing on putting a little bit of tension through my heels so I can keep my lower back flat. I'm gonna take a big exhale so that I feel my rib cage come down, and we'll talk more about that later when we go to hip mobility. But it's just a good way to start, good position. From here, you're gonna try and bring that other leg up as long as your leg is straight. You're going to bring it up as high as you can, pulling your toes towards your face. And from here, sometimes you'll feel maybe a little bit of hamstring, but mostly I'm looking for that quad or calf to get a good stretch here. And then when we get to the top, we're actually going to go ahead and think about trying to make a fist and grab, like if you're trying to make a fist with your foot, grab with the toes, really squeeze, and then pull those toes back towards the face again. Keep that leg nice and straight, lower back flat on the floor. I don't know, let's go through 5 to 8 of these. Squeeze, really try to grab. You able to really curl your toes and make a fist? It's hard, huh?
Not really. Who can?
I mean, can you flex your toes down like you're grabbing a hold of something? Yeah, it's tough. It's not something that we practice, and I feel overall, just wearing shoes and I don't know, being in comfortable socks all the time definitely has its effects. I said 5 to 8, and then we'll switch sides. Should be waking up some things. Grab, really try and pull, make a fist with the foot, pull those toes in, and then you're really trying to pull it back. Keep that leg nice and straight. Keep the back flat. Couple seconds of really trying to pause and squeeze. Then we're going to go back to the right leg, and now you're going to do some circles. Trying to make some big circles with those ankles. Trying to really open up and wake some things up. 5 circles each way. So we're kind of circling one way, and then we're going to circle the other, and really try and make it as big a circle as you can without letting the rest of your leg move, right? It's just around the ankle. Snap, crackle, pop. Any of you guys snap, crackle, popping?
You are.
mean, these joint circles can be a great way to just get you to kind of build some awareness of the end ranges of your, whether it's your shoulder, your wrists, whatever. Like you can do that with like almost any joint, your hips, and it's a pretty good way to wake things up. From there, we're gonna go to, we do this position when we do the hand walkouts. We start in what we call bear, which is kind of this quadruped position, and then we're gonna come up, and I'm just thinking about keeping my butt tucked, trying to draw my heels towards the floor, keep my legs nice and straight as I can. You should feel that stretch behind the cow. Like I said, that is a good thing to focus on because it's, you know, more likely than not, we're pretty tight there. If we have limited ankle mobility. And you can rock back and forth, just getting that calf stretch. Again, trying to keep that butt tucked. "30 seconds or so." And then there's a couple other things I wanted to do. So the activity that we'll work on to strengthen, you know, some of the stuff we've just woken up is we're just going to go through some full range calf raises. So if you have a step or a fireplace that has like, you know, I don't know, or I mean I usually use a bench when I'm at the gym, and then I'll just hold on to the rig. The way that we'll do it is we're just going to go through calf raise all the way up, full range of motion, good squeeze to the top, and then I'm going to come down to my heels, and then I'm going to pull my toes towards my face. And I like having a dowel or like something to help you balance is good. We're just going to try and really get full range of motion, calf raise in both directions, so all the way up. We're going to do somewhere between 10 and 15 of these, depending on how fast you're moving. I'd rather you move slower, pulling those toes up. It's a little easier like on a ledge like this, or even if you have, like I have those books here somewhere, of being able to really bridge up, coming down, getting a good stretch. But this is pretty good too. I feel like I'm getting some pretty good stuff going on. So all the way up, all the way down. You can use a foam roller to help you balance. So you don't want to pull those toes towards the face when we come up to the top. Full range, really get up to the top. And then next we're going to talk about hip mobility. Alright. Okay, so the hip mobility stuff, it is really key that we pay attention to the position of our rib cage and our hips. Every time that we breathe, our diaphragm and the muscles within our pelvis work together to basically control pressure and air. And so if our breathing and our rib cage position is off or less than optimal, and we have hip stuff going on, like it can definitely help. Because every time I breathe, there's going to be influence on my pelvis, right? So we're going to start in a dead bug position. We're just going to go hands and feet up. Basically any position where we're supine like this on our back, where we just focus on a flat back. We're trying to focus on getting our ribs down towards the floor, because that's going to be the best way to center our rib cage to help influence what the hips are doing. But we got a couple drills here that will help kind of get the whole system going. So take big exhale. Got some abs going, right? Deep ab muscles. And then I'm just going to lower one leg. Tap. Right back up. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit here, you can go legs straight. Move with your breath. Only go to the point where you still feel like you're confident about keeping your lower back on the floor, right? So if my leg goes out and my hips roll, then I went too far. So, yeah, for me that might be somewhere in the middle of this bend. if you're actively taking a big exhale and pushing and driving these ribs down through the floor and really feeling your lower back flat, you should feel quite a bit of abs here. And, you know, really good thing to practice. Really good thing to practice for strength training. Good thing to practice for mobility and control. Learning how to center our joints, because we can center all the stuff here in the middle. Everything that is outward, like our arms and our legs, the range of motion is going to get a lot better. Biggest joints here, or the biggest bones, are, you know, hips, spine, rib cage. They got a lot of influence over everything. We're shooting for 5 to 8 on each side. Again, just kind of warming up. Nothing too crazy. From here, if you have a foam roller, you can grab a foam roller, or you can roll up some towels. Something like a yoga block, if you have that. You just need something to squeeze your knees together, and if you don't have anything, then there is a way to still do it. But you're going to stay in this dead bug position. You're going to squeeze foam roller, and then from here, I'll do it this way so you can see. From here, I'm taking that big breath out. I'm actually going to think about squeezing the roller or the block, and my feet, I'm going to try and push my heels away from each other. They're going to keep the same distance from the floor, but I'm going to try to really push my heels apart as I squeeze the foam roller, and I'm really rotating my hips inward. Good breaths here. The more air you get out on the exhale, the more that we're going to reinforce this position. And I brought my pelvis model, maybe we'll talk about it later, why this position is so important for mobility of the hips. So let's do it one more time, same drill. Maybe like 3 to 5 breaths, because the breathing can get you a little lightheaded, right? Like when you're doing these big exhales and you're not used to it, but it is really, really good for you. Really good for you. Good for joint health. Good for really getting those hips centered. So again, we're here. We're going to exhale. Push those heels away from each other. Should feel the muscles on the inside of the legs nice and deep. Squeeze the roller. If you don't have anything, you can still do this drill. You're just really focusing on keeping your knees stacked over your hips while you try and push your heels away from each other, really rotating those feet in. I know this position is super awkward and super weird, but you know, that's probably a good sign that it's a range of motion that we should be actually working in, because most of our strength training is more kind of going the other way, right? Our knees kind of go out, and unless we're doing a lot of single leg activity, our adductors don't tend to get like a ton of exercise in more of this like narrowed knee position, which is, it's a good thing to do. We want to be strong in all these different ranges of motion. So the next thing we're going to do is good bridge. We've done enough of these at this point where I think everybody knows. So, you know, now that we've kind of done a little bit of, I don't know, getting into some different ranges of motion here, we're going to try to get a little stretch, but mostly trying to activate our glute. Eight each side. More thinking about rolling the tailbone up, reinforcing this position with good exhales. Don't have to go very high. Alright, we're going to do one more kind of hip exercise here. And then the last two that we're going to do are really focused on a particular part of the hips. that can really help people with getting more depth in their squat, kind of opening up some tight spots where most of us are gonna hopefully feel a stretch. But before we do that, we're gonna do one more drill here. It's that easy money. We're gonna be on our side. We're gonna bring that top foot about knee, mid quad height. Keep the foot flat. From here, I'm thinking about raising I'm keeping my bottom leg nice and straight, and I'm gonna try and raise it towards the ceiling, right? With the left leg up, this tends to be a little bit easier. I guess this side is easier when the leg is up. When we go to the right side, if people feel limited, that's usually where they feel limited. And there's reasons for that too. Like I said, I have my pelvis model if we want to talk about any of that stuff, but let's do it at the end. I don't want to take away from your workout. I guess I should have said this at the beginning. If you're looking for like a super hard workout today where you're going to crush it and sweat, this isn't necessarily the workout. And you're going to do 10 of those leg raises. Today we're really focusing on joint health, position. We're going to focus, we focused on the ankle, we're going to focus on the hips, and then we're going to go to just a couple of movements I think to get you feeling good before we get going for the weekend. Overall today should be relatively easy as far as intensity. Maybe not so easy as far as just, awareness, and it's just challenging in a different way, right? We're raising that bottom leg, really trying to keep this knee opened up, keeping my foot flat on the ground. Getting those adductors, you might feel the outside of your top hip, like your glute. Yeah, that side's always definitely more challenging for me. So next thing we're gonna do is it's a modified pigeon, and we're really working on a very specific part of the hip to try and get it to open up a little bit, so that when we go into our squats, our split squats, that it's a little bit easier for us to get into good depth. If we do have issues with hip mobility, I've had people just do this stretch and then squat, and then they feel better. Let's see, who's that? Ryan. Ryan. What's up, Ryan? So from here, you're bringing your foot, like your shin is gonna come like shoulder, like parallel with your shoulders. You're gonna block the ankle with the knee. This looks kind of funky. And then when you come down to the floor with your elbows, you're gonna sit back. So let's restart. My shin needs to match my shoulder, like parallel with my shoulders. From here, when I sit down, I'm gonna sit back, and I'm trying to get a stretch, so I'll do it on this side. Should feel the stretch here in the back, like outside of my back pocket. So this is kind of the starting position. I come down, and then I'm sitting back. I'm driving back into this hip and this leg that's bent. Trying to, do you feel a stretch there?
A little bit. My knees.
Oh yeah. You want to get that mat? If you have a hard time hitting good depth in your squat, this could be a nice way to kind of open some stuff up. It's a pretty safe stretch, right? There's some stretches I'm not such a fan of, because I think they focus a little bit too much on maybe stretching some things that we don't necessarily know what we're stretching, like ligaments and some other stuff. But this one in particular is like relatively safe. From my experience, it's gotten like pretty quickly. It can help people hit some better depth in their squats. And I don't know, how does it feel? Go down to your elbows. And now think about sitting your hips back, and you're trying to basically sit back into this hip. You get a stretch there? Pretty tight? Yeah, this feels pretty tight. Spend a little more time going through it. I'm going to do it one more time on each side. Then, probably the easiest way to start is just from here, walking my knee back to my ankle, and then pulling my shin up to that parallel position with my shoulders. And like really trying to get towards the ankle, because if you're too high, then it's going to be hard to get that lever to really open that hip up. Tighter on that side?
Just a lot of pressure on the knees.
Yeah. Take some good breaths.
Gonna be good in a wall sit too. The same position.
I mean, the particular position we're working on here, you could probably still feel a pretty good stretch going to the wall, but we're not necessarily getting the same forces going back and through the hip like what the floor allows us to. But finish up. Let's move on to the next one here. So the next one is actually standing. It's a very similar feeling. So it can be helpful to have something like a book or something to step on with the front leg. So you're going to go to this kind of split stance. Usually we load weight in our front leg, right, when we do these kind of split stance positions. But today, the way this looks, and you don't necessarily even need a pad, you're just going to have a staggered stance here. What we're going to do is keeping our back nice and straight. It's basically like a single leg RDL. I'm going to take my opposite hand as I sit back, and I'm trying to get that same kind of stretch that we just did. So I'm up, I'm pushing my hips up and back, just like that single leg RDL position, but now I'm doing it with a leg in front. And the toes can probably come up off the ground. Again, we're trying to get that same stretch that we just did in that modified pigeon position, trying to open up those hips there. You feel a stretch on this one? Reach with the opposite hand, so whichever leg is back, my other hand is going to reach across to help me shift my weight over to that side. Let's get 10 on each side. Ryan stopped in. I don't know if she stayed, but she said hi.
Nice.
Flat back, weight in the heel, sitting back trying to open those hips up. If that exercise is pretty easy for you, you can always take a light dumbbell and do it that way too, where we're reaching in. Like I said, you should feel most of that through the back side of your hip though. That's mostly what we're trying to get at here. I'm here, stretching. Awesome. Love it. Okay. So now we're going to get into a couple other movements, just kind of getting us moving today, feeling good. Nothing too crazy, nothing too challenging. We're going to go back to the Turkish get-up. We're going to go through, some instruction on that particular movement. I'm going to move my other camera here just so that we get a better angle, but maybe Janelle can start you off with those first positions, because Janelle's gotten probably more training in the Turkish get-up than I have. She's had a couple trainers in particular that she works with. You can go shoes on if you want. But I think it's a fun movement. Something a little bit different. Getting into some different ranges of motion. I don't know if I'm standing in your way.
The floor?
Yep, just from the floor all the way up. So from here,
I guess.
there you go. Whichever hand is loaded. You got your knee bent. Coming to the elbow, stacking those shoulders up. Coming up to the hand, still keeping it nice and stacked. You bridge, and you don't necessarily need to hold the bridge that long, but that's okay. And then reach back.
Friends ever done one, so.
We'll talk through it when she goes to the other side. Well, you can kind of spin around this way maybe, and then. So the big thing that we're focused on with the Turkish get-up is really shoulder stability, right? Like we want to make sure that we're packing our shoulders down, so when we come to bridge ourselves up, we're not hurting our shoulder. And so what Janelle's going to do to start here in her Turkish get-up, she's got a hand up and then her knee bent so her foot is flat, right? Kind of like a glute bridge position. Her other arm and leg are parallel to each other about 45 degrees from her midline. And so when she bridges up, she's going to bridge herself over and pull herself up with her elbow. When she comes to this position, she's nice and stacked. Her shoulders from her elbow, her shoulder, hand, everything's nice and stacked. Her eyes are on her hand. Typically she'd be carrying a weight here, and she would want to be looking at the weight the whole time. From here, she's going to do a windshield wipe with that bottom hand, and then she's going to come up to posturing up to her hand. What's really important here now is that we continue to take the pit of our elbow and bring it to more of the outside so that we're able to stack that shoulder down. When she bridges herself up and comes underneath, you know that you've ended up in a good position when your hand, your knee, and your foot are in a straight line on the ground, right? Those planted hand, knee, toe, you want them to be nice and straight. So if you need to readjust yourself, just readjust yourself. You don't have to go all the way back. And then from here, she's going to sit back, sit up. She's going to bring her legs to more of that split stance position or half kneeling. And then from here, she's going to lunge herself up. And then she's going to lunge herself all the way back down. She's going to open it from here. You're going to try to keep your eyes on your hands. So the way that you're going to find the floor is tracking your quad so that you can come out and then find a good position to now bring yourself back down to the floor. Boom. Trying to keep tension all the way down. Like you're not trying to fall down, especially if you have a heavy weight. You're coming to the elbow. I usually make people take one full breath in each position just to slow them down, to really be conscious and control each position. I mean, what you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you got like somewhere around 10 breaths that you need to take to get through the whole thing, right?
I just did.
So when you load the bell or the dumbbell, whatever, you're going to be in that fetal position. You're going to roll with the weight. It's going to be the safest way to start. From here, she's going to press it up with both hands. This is a 16 kg. Boom. Coming up. Your hand, turn the pit of the elbow out. Good. Up. Crushing it. Open up. So now that that weight's heavy, she's got to keep her eyes on it, right? She's going to find her quad to track. Good. Nice job. Yeah, just like that. Just do that. If you have a dumbbell, you can use a dumbbell as well. Load it the same way though. Start on your side, roll over with it, press. Just go back and forth here. We're going to spend some time on this, so get your reps in, take your time. Get some good practice today. Good breaths. Typically the way that I would program this if like we were at the gym is we'd start with like a lot of shoulder stability stuff, maybe doing some like working with the kettlebell, building some awareness, and then going to like the half get up to the get up, and then with pretty light kettlebells, and then we would work up each round to a little bit heavier, and then it just kind of depends on what we're working on. So just kind of depends on what we're working on that day, but typically, progressing the weight in each round as they feel warm, and yeah. Want me to do it now? Is that what you said?
Sure.
Let's get one more on each side. Like I said, I'll do it with a dumbbell just so that you can see the load and the unload of the weight. It is important that, when we switch sides with the weight, that we don't bring it across our body, that we are tracking it like you saw Janelle do. She brought it around and rolled it over her head. That's going to be the safest way for us to go about doing that. Okay, so when I go to load the bell, I'm going to go into a fetal position. I'm going to hug the weight, bring it in nice and close to my body. And then with both hands, I'm going to roll. And then from here, I'll use both hands to press. And I'm actually going to switch hands here so they can see. From here, I'm keeping my arm nice and straight. I'm trying to get my armpit nice and tight. I'm going to go 45 degrees with this leg. I'm going to match it with the hand. As I push myself over, I'm pulling. And sometimes we'll give people like another weight to hold on to over here, or like a bar, so they pull themselves up. And so from here, keep my eyes on the bell, swing the hand. Once I get to this position, I don't need to keep my eyes up at the bell anymore. It's hard in socks.
Told you.
I feel like I'm sliding all over the place. Again, being in control even on the way down. We're not falling down, we're controlling ourselves down.
Have you done a Turkish get up, Mr. Ryan?
One more time on this side, and then we'll get into some of our other stuff we're going to do today. Wait, I already did this. There's definitely a strong side too. That's the worst part.
She says, heck yeah, I love Turkish get-ups. They're not as fun with my little 10-pound dumbbells.
Nice.
But
Another way to make it challenging, if you want to keep working on this, is just take your shoe and balance it on your hand. So it just makes you slow down and really control the movement. That's a fun way to do it. Or a book. You just balance that book on your fists. And then, practice going through the get up nice and stable. There's some other ways to do it without load. Still challenging. Okay, we're going to do a 30-second split squat hold on each leg. And I'm going to need some shoes, actually. Finish up your get ups. You gonna do it with weight? You don't want to do this with weight. And you might do it with weight, I don't know. We're gonna start in half kneeling, one knee down on the floor or one knee down. And then basically you're just gonna bring yourself up off the ground slightly. So if you need, like a foam roller or a dowel, something to, take the pressure off your legs a little bit, it's okay, you can do that. But do your best here, it's just 30 seconds. I know lots of us got around a minute or more when we did the test here a couple weeks ago. But we're going to do definitely a few rounds here, making sure we're getting some good tension in our legs. And so I got a timer going. So we'll go 30 seconds. We'll shake it out for a couple seconds and we'll switch legs. So 30 seconds, not too long. Let's see. Ready? Let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and up. So again, your knee just comes about an inch off the floor. We talked about the benefit of these kind of isometric exercises where we're holding ourselves in these positions. It's not going to make us terribly sore, but they are really challenging. They do force the muscle to do a lot of work. And so I know one of my buddies who does a lot of athletic development, they use this position a lot to build strength, especially in sprinters and powerful athletes. Got to be able to get, that's 30 seconds. Got to be able to get in these positions and control ourselves, right? Okay. And we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. And I'm trying to like kind of suction myself by pushing with my toe, pushing with my leg, staying nice and tall. You can do a version where you come more forward and that'll put it in your hips a little bit more, but just make sure your spine is straight. And good. Okay, next thing we're going to work on is we're going to do the Z press, and we're going to start with some lighter weight. Doesn't need to be particularly heavy, maybe like a 20. And you know what we're going to focus on here is basically trying to get some air moving with opposites. Some shoulder health, some breathing. In this basically tall seated position, it's nice because it just kind of helps get us into a good position without having to overcue things. With the bell, it's going to come in. I'm going to exhale, reach. I'm going to bring it down nice and slow, and then my other hand is actually going to go up. So I'm really trying to get my shoulders moving in opposite directions. Eight to 10, somewhere in there, and then we'll switch. What was that, 6, 7?
5? 6, I think.
Nice and tall, straight up towards the ceiling, like punching the ceiling. Oh no, how many of you are sore after the last couple of days? I'm a little sore with myself. I didn't sleep very good last night. I got too hot. Every time I get hot when I sleep, I have nightmares. I have the craziest dreams.
Me too. The gym never opened and I went to go work on a farm.
Went to go work on a farm?
Yep.
You do good on a farm. There'll be lots of work for you.
I went there.
You're like, oh, Janelle still has energy. Let's take her out to the, I don't know, goats. You probably really like being out there, actually.
The farm life in the overalls. That was my whole dream.
Milking cows. I can see it. Alright, we're going to do a hold here from that bear plank. So on all fours, we're going to push our knees off the ground. We're going to go 30 seconds to a minute. We'll see how you're feeling. Like I said, today isn't necessarily the day if you came to get like a really hard workout. Today's more about feeling good, finishing out the week, you know, talking about joint health a little bit. If you want a tougher workout, go back to basically any other day we did this week. They were all pretty challenging in their own ways. Okay, so we're on all fours, tucking our toes, and then from here we're basically going to push our knees off the ground. And 3, 2, 1. Try to keep that weight loaded forward in the hands. Nice flat back. Knees just come off a little bit, so it might feel our quads a little bit. Hopefully feel our abs. As we're doing some breathing. Really pushing our ribcage away from the floor. That's 30 seconds. You can keep going if you need. I'll tell you when a minute is if you want to keep going. If this is tough on the wrists, there are some exercises you can do from this position where you start to work your hands from being forward to the sideways to bringing them all the way around but where they're pointed towards you. You got 10 seconds if you're going for a minute. And you can kind of get more comfortable with the mobility. 2, 1, relax. You can get more comfortable with your wrist being in those positions. And kind of coming back and forth again, just like we do with the ankles, right? Trying to get through good ranges of motion, getting the body used to that, building some strength there. So a lot of people, that their wrists bother them in those positions. Okay, we're going back to the split squat. 30-second hold. I felt my triceps wall. That's totally fine, yeah. Do your best to engage a little bit of lat by thinking about squeezing. We call it tickle defense. You know, somebody who's going to try and tickle you. You squeeze your armpits, right? Like, try to get those muscles involved too. It's good that you feel your triceps. Maybe that's your weak link as far as like the chain for like push-ups and stuff. But yeah, do your best to use some of these bigger muscles to help you stabilize your shoulder. Triceps is good. If you're feeling more like your shoulder, then I would be more concerned about where you're creating tension, but that's not bad. All right, 3, 2, 1. Up again in that split squat. 30-second hold. I don't know, I'm just kidding around. Practice our fast hands here. But we look super cool. Halfway. I don't know, this is just more distracting me than anything. Just trying to get me away from the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Shake it off for a second. So happy to have Ryan here. I've been hearing her voice for like a month now on Janelle's phone. She's been talking about coming to exercise. And ready, go.
Picked an easy day.
You picked the easy day, I know. Good job. That's what I would have done. Holding that split squat, feeling the burn. Like I said, this shouldn't make you too sore. These isometric positions don't really tear up the muscles like other exercises that we do. I don't know, you guys sore? I'm sore after yesterday. We did a lot of RDLs. Good. Like a lot of RDLs and like hip thrusts. Like my glutes are a little sore. Okay, back to the Z press. Oh, nice, making good time too. One more Z press.
LOL, well, I did work out all week, so this is good. Plus, I'm working out at noon again today.
Oh, good job.
Good work.
You're working out more than I am. Alright, one more Z press, one more on the all fours, and then we'll see where we're at on time here. There's another thing I want you guys to practice. Basically, the next thing you're going to practice, in case we run out of time, is just going to be going into a deep squat and then trying to breathe there. There's a couple other ways that we can work on that, but I recommend doing a heel lift, trying to sit your butt down to your haunches, and then try to breathe from that position and see if you can do it. Some of you will have the ability to like squat down and breathe and just fine, and some of us are gonna struggle. I'm one of those struggling people. We got one more bear plank. Again, 30 seconds to a minute. Really keeping that tension and trying to get those armpits involved, right? Try and squeeze. Squeeze those muscles under your armpit to help stabilize your shoulder. 3, 2, 1, go. Bud?
Oh, all the hair.
Your hair?
Yeah.
It's 35 seconds. You can keep going if you want to go to the minute. 35, 40. If you're done, grab something that you can lift your heels up with, like a book or a ledge, something. You got about 8 seconds to a minute. Yeah, that pad probably works good. And done. If you're still going, go ahead and stop. So, here's how we're going to practice this. You're going to try your best to keep your toes straight ahead. You can take a wide base, that's okay. We're all built a little bit different in the hips. But I want you to focus on more of that toes straight ahead position. Like I said, it's not wrong to go wide. Like I have to go wide in a lot of things. We do like sumo style stuff, right? It's just being able to get into all these different ranges of motion is a good thing. And so, one thing we tend not to work on as much is more of this toes straight ahead. Keep the weight in the heels. We're going to squat down. We're going to try and come all the way to the bottom. And your feet might rotate out a little bit, that's fine. Now we're just going to try and take some breaths from here. Trying to stay nice and tall. This is like a pretty challenging. For some of us, maybe like 5 good breaths. How does it feel?
Comfortable?
Really? Is this comfortable for you guys? I definitely would not call that comfortable for me. Woo! Lightheaded there. We're gonna do one more round before we leave today. So it shouldn't have been too hard. Today was more addressing some joint health, just feeling good, hanging out. Janelle's just gonna hang out here the whole time because she's like, yeah, this is nothing.
Comfortable.
Is this comfortable for you guys? Curious. Alright, one more round. Just, 5 breaths or so, just sit in that deep squat. Try a little wider base, maybe that'll help. Because I got these super wide hips,
Baby.
I'm just kidding, I have very narrow hips. So if it's so easy, maybe you poop like this?
All the time.
Just over the toilet?
Yeah. Squatty potty.
If that is challenging, another way to practice it is just sitting on like a small surface. Call it a short seated reach. I'll use a foam roller just as a way to show you. But basically, you would sit, pull your heels in as close as you can, and then you bring your chest down to your knees. And then just focusing on really learning how to expand air up here into the chest and into the back. And this is another way to really help you get a little more depth in your squat. Kind of open up some places that are tight. I've had a lot of people with like lower back stuff where their back is tight, and it tends to help with that as well. Just kind of opening up and expanding that back with some air. But that's all we got for you today. A little more laid back. So the programming is going to totally change next week. We've done a whole month of programming, which is crazy to think about. It's not that the exercises will necessarily be a ton different. I'm just going to organize the week a little bit differently. Instead of like all pull, I think I'm going to go to more of like a push-pull, like a upper push, lower pull kind of mixing things in a little bit more that way. There are some strategies to why that's a good idea, and just it's good to switch things up anyway. So yeah, it should be fun. I'll look forward to Monday and getting kind of a fresh program going. And looks like we're gonna have at least probably another month of this. So always appreciate y'all stopping by and hanging out, and
Thanks.
always love seeing you, whether you just stopping in to say hi or if you're actually working out with us. Yeah, Ryan, welcome. Hope to see you again. Have fun with your workout later today.
The weed workout.
Good to see you, Amy.
Thanks, Goo Goo.
Yeah. Fun